My husband thought he had a son in another country. For 12 years, she sent photos, updates, even let him talk to the child once. Then, out of nowhere, she sent one message, and everything unraveled. What she admitted left us questioning our entire marriage. Eric told me about the baby on our third date. We were sitting in a quiet Italian place that had more candles than necessary. He was halfway through his carbonara when he wiped his mouth and said, almost casually, "There's something I should probably tell you." That's never a fun sentence to hear. But he said it with this tired kind of honesty, not dramatic, not secretive, just the way someone sounds when they're used to carrying a story alone. Back when he was in college, he spent a year abroad in Europe, met a girl, Katie. They dated briefly, nothing serious. After he flew home, she messaged him to say she was pregnant. Then she said she was terminating the pregnancy. Then she blocked him. 3 years passed before she reappeared, claiming she'd kept the baby, a son. By then, Eric had just finished school, broke and overwhelmed. Katie said her boyfriend was raising the child like his own. Eric offered medical history, said he wouldn't interfere. That was the start of a years-long pattern. Katie would block him, then unblock him, months later. Sometimes she was kind and cooperative. Other times she accused him of abandoning them. But no matter what, the boy, this quiet, faceless idea of a child, always lingered at the edge of his life. When Eric finished telling me the story, he looked like he expected me to run. But I didn't. I asked a few questions, nodded, tried to absorb it. There was no bitterness in the way he spoke, just guilt. The kind that sits heavy in the lungs. He said he didn't know how to be a father to someone across the world, someone he wasn't sure even wanted him in that role, but he stayed available. He didn't know what else to do. At the time it sounded complicated but contained, like something he'd put on a shelf, waiting for a time when it made sense to take it down again. I didn't love the idea of a child floating in the background of our future, but it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a sad, unfinished chapter from a life before me. That feeling didn't last. By 2018, Eric and I were getting serious, living together, sharing bills, having those late-night conversations where the idea of a future stops being abstract. I asked him if he'd ever thought about meeting the child. He paused. "I have," he said, "but I don't even know if Katie would let it happen." That's when I suggested a trip. We were already planning a vacation backpacking through Southeast Asia. Why not try? If there was a child, and if that child knew who Eric was, maybe it was time to close the distance. Eric seemed unsure at first, but the idea grew on him. Within a week, he messaged Katie to say we'd be in her part of the world and wanted to meet. She didn't take it well. First came the suspicion. I don't know her. Then the outrage. You don't get to choose when to be a parent. Then the shutdown blocked again on every platform. That was the moment something shifted for me. Before that, she just seemed chaotic. Now she seemed defensive, like she had something to hide. But I kept that to myself. In early 2019, Eric and I got engaged. We were happy, hopeful. I got pregnant a few months later. It wasn't planned, but it felt like everything was falling into place. Then I lost the baby. It was early, just past 12 weeks, but it broke something open in both of us. Grief, guilt, helplessness. Eric got quiet for weeks. One night, sitting on the floor beside our bed, he whispered, "It feels like I lost another child." That's when I realized Katie's story wasn't just a loose end in his past. It lived in him. It shaped how he felt about fatherhood, about failure. Whether the child was real or not, he had grieved him for years. I wanted to protect him from that. I also wanted answers. So I told my parents everything. Not just the "there's a kid" part, they already knew that. I told them about the inconsistencies, the years of vanishing and reappearing, the lack of legal action, the lack of any real proof. My dad, a lawyer, didn't say much at first, but 2 days later, I was sitting across from him and two of his colleagues at lunch. One practiced immigration law, the other, family law. They asked question after question. Had we seen a birth certificate? No. Had Katie ever requested citizenship paperwork for the child? Never. Had she ever asked for child support? Not once. The immigration lawyer leaned back and said, "Even wealthy families in that region try for citizenship if the father's American. It doesn't add up." I took that back to Eric. He didn't argue, but he didn't agree either. "She wouldn't lie about something like this," he said quietly. "She's messed up, sure, but not like that." I let it go. He wasn't ready. We got married in September 2019, and like clockwork, Katie came back during our honeymoon. This time she opened with, "Well, I guess we're all a family now." The next 2 months were the best communication had ever been. She was calm, polite. She even let Eric talk to the child once. Briefly over the phone. The boy's English wasn't great, she said. He was shy. But the call happened. That call became Eric's anchor. Proof. Not perfect, but enough. We moved on. Life felt normal for a while. In April 2020, I got pregnant again. After what happened last time, we kept it quiet. No announcements, no bump pics, just peace. Our son was born in January 2021. We waited a few days, then posted one picture, his tiny hand in mine, the caption simple, "Survived the pandemic, now facing sleepless nights." 15 minutes later, Katie messaged us. She called us twisted, said we were making light of a tragedy, said I was disgusting for not telling her, so she could prepare her son to become a big brother. Then came the personal attacks. Nasty, spiteful things no sane person says out loud. I was 3 days postpartum, bleeding, exhausted, crying over everything. That message broke something in me, so I asked Eric to block her. Just for a few days, just long enough to catch our breath. He did. A few days later, when he unblocked her, she was gone. Again, this time she didn't come back. Not after the baby. Not after the months passed. Not even when we had the twins in October 2023. Eric tried. I watched him draft messages, look through old photos, reread their last exchange like he'd missed something. But there was nothing. Just silence. And honestly, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe the lie had run its course. Maybe whatever grip she had on him, on us, had finally loosened. I didn't know that the worst part wasn't over. It hadn't even begun. The silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like something waiting to return. After Katie vanished again, I didn't let myself believe it was over. Not really. I wanted to. God. I wanted that chapter to be closed, but I knew better. If the last decade had taught us anything, it was that she always came back, disguised as an apology, disguised as rage, disguised as love. This time though, nothing. No email, no block-unblock cycle, no cryptic messages, no child's drawing, nothing. She disappeared right when our twins were born in October 2023. You'd think that would have been a trigger. Another wave of jealousy or guilt or whatever strange emotion always brought her back. But months passed, and the more silence stretched between us, the more Eric began to unravel. It started small. He'd check old emails, scroll through years of messages, as if searching for a hidden clue. He pulled up photos she'd sent, the same ones he'd looked at 100 times before, but this time he zoomed in like he was analyzing evidence. Once I caught him flipping through his Facebook messages with her, one hand resting on our newborn son's back while he fed him a bottle with the other. He wasn't just reminiscing. He was searching for her, for the boy, for closure. I understood. Sort of. I was too exhausted to dive in emotionally. Breastfeeding twins, barely sleeping and healing from delivery, but I knew something in Eric had reopened, like a scab he hadn't meant to scratch. One night in December, he sat next to me on the couch and quietly asked, "Would it be crazy to hire someone?" I didn't even look up from the baby monitor. Like a private investigator? Yeah, just to see if she's okay. If the kid's okay. If any of it was ever okay. There was a pause. The twins were both asleep for once, and the house was completely still. "I don't think you want to know the answer," I said. He didn't reply. Instead of hiring someone, Eric turned into one. By January, he was deep into online forums. American expats in Southeast Asia, university alumni groups, old study abroad programs. He reached out to a former professor who ran the exchange program he'd attended back in 2012. He even asked a college friend if they remembered Katie. They didn't. Not really. Was she the one with the accent? Someone asked. Didn't she have a really nice apartment? But no one had a last name. No one had a photo. No one remembered a baby. Around this time, he started digging into Google reverse image searches. He uploaded every photo of the child she'd sent him over the years. Birthday parties, class pictures, candid shots of a boy eating noodles at a restaurant. Nothing came up. No matches. No duplicates. No stolen social media posts. No clues. That should have been a relief. Proof she hadn't just swiped pictures off the internet. But somehow it made things worse. It meant the photos weren't fake in the way we'd imagined. It meant they were hers. Wherever she was, she'd curated this entire illusion herself. She'd taken those photos or staged them, or found a child no one else could trace. The silence got heavier after that. Eric stopped sleeping properly. He was in the nursery rocking one of the twins until almost 4 a.m. some nights. I heard the soft creak of the chair through the walls. I knew he was just sitting there holding his real child, thinking about the imaginary one. That's when he brought up the trip again. "Let's go," he said. One morning, let's just go. To where? To Southeast Asia. All the places we planned before. Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia. Maybe if we're there, I don't know. Maybe she'll see it. Maybe she'll reach out. I wanted to tell him how crazy it sounded. That it felt like chasing smoke. That we had 3 kids under 3 and dragging them across the world to hunt down a ghost wasn't what I signed up for. But I also knew what he was really asking for permission to try. To let this thing finally run its course. So I said yes. We booked the trip for March 2024. 3 weeks. 2 baby carriers. A double stroller. Diapers stuffed into every side pocket of our suitcases. I won't lie, it was a mess. Beautiful, chaotic, sleep-deprived. The twins hated flights. Our toddler threw tantrums in temples and hotel lobbies. There were moments I thought we were insane. But there were also moments I caught Eric staring out over rooftops in Bangkok or watching kids play soccer in a park in Penang, and I knew what he was doing. Imagining, would he be that tall? Would he look like me? Would he be shy like our daughter, or loud like our son? Eric messaged Katie 3 times while we were there. Nothing dramatic, just simple things. "Hey, we're traveling through your part of the world. We'd love to say hi if you're open to it. Hope you're well, hope he's well. All 3 messages were left unread. After the second week, Eric stopped checking. We visited her city last. He didn't say it out loud, but I could feel the tension in him the entire time. Every time someone walked by with a boy around 12 years old, he glanced at them too long. Our toddler asked him once why he was sad. He just kissed her head and said, "I'm okay, baby." But I knew he wasn't. We left the city without hearing a word. On our last night before flying home, we sat in a hotel room, watching the twins sleep in a single travel crib we'd squeezed between the beds. Eric leaned against the headboard, legs stretched out, phone on his chest. "I thought being here would fix it," he said. "Fix what?" "This feeling, like something's missing, or broken, or unfinished." I didn't know what to say, because I got it. He was grieving someone who never even proved they existed, and I was grieving the version of him who hadn't yet lived with that truth. I laid my head on his shoulder. "She might not come back this time," I said. "I know. She might never have existed the way we thought. I know." There was a long silence. Then he said, almost in a whisper, "But what if she did?" That was the hardest part, not knowing if we were running from a lie, or toward the truth we didn't want to face. It would be months before we found out, and it would come not with another vanishing act, but with a message that changed everything. We got home, unpacked, and did what people always do after a long trip. They pretend things are normal. We smiled through jet lag, restocked the fridge, returned work emails, took the kids to the park like nothing had happened. But the truth sat between us constantly, like a fourth shadow in the hallway. A silence that wasn't quiet. Eric didn't bring up the trip much. He didn't talk about Katie. He didn't check for replies anymore. It was like he'd forced himself into emotional paralysis. The version of him that had spent months chasing her was gone, replaced by a man who seemed to move just to keep from thinking. Sometimes I caught him staring at the framed photo of our twins on the bookshelf, just staring, not smiling, not even blinking. He never said it out loud, but I could hear the question in the silence. What if I mourned a lie for 12 years? Then came the weekend. A Saturday like any other. Waffles in the morning, cartoons humming in the background. I was folding laundry on the couch, surrounded by tiny onesies and toddler socks. When I heard Eric's phone buzz in the kitchen, he ignored it at first. Then it buzzed again. And again, he walked over, unlocked it, and went still. I could tell by the way he just stood there, thumb frozen above the screen, chest not rising. I dropped the laundry and got up. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer. "Eric." He finally looked up. His eyes were wide, his skin pale like he'd just stepped out of a freezer. "It's her," he said. I took a step closer. "Katie?" He nodded once, then turned the phone, so I could see. There it was. A message, plain as day. No subject line, no pictures. Just her name and a wall of text. He handed me the phone like it was on fire. I sat down and started to read. "I don't know how to start this, and I'm sorry if this is the wrong way. I know what I did was awful, and I've been carrying it for a long time, but I can't keep pretending anymore. I wasn't pregnant." That was the first sentence. My stomach dropped. I never was. I lied. The first time I told you I was pregnant, I thought maybe you'd come back, or at least talk to me. But when you didn't, I panicked. I told you I terminated because I couldn't handle being ignored. But I wasn't even pregnant then. I looked up at Eric. He was sitting across from me now, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly they were shaking. I kept reading. "I met someone else after that. I thought I'd move on, but when that ended, I came back to you. I thought maybe if I told you I had the baby, you'd care, you'd stay. I didn't think it through. I didn't expect it to last this long. I didn't expect you to be kind. I didn't expect you to check in. But once I started, I didn't know how to stop. I had to stop reading. My vision was going blurry. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real." I handed the phone back to Eric. "Finish it," I said. He took a deep breath, then read the rest out loud. "The photos were real, but not of our kid. He's not mine either. He was my friend's nephew. I took pictures whenever I visited and passed them off as mine. That's why you could never talk to him for long. That's why I blocked you so often. I was terrified you'd find out." He swallowed hard and kept going. "I know I need help. I know I need therapy. I've already started seeing someone. I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. That's not an excuse. But I want you to understand how twisted my mind became. I truly believed for years that this lie mattered more than the truth. I'm sorry. For everything. For the way I hurt you. For the way I hurt her. For pretending. I will not contact you again. I won't try to defend this anymore. Please live your life. You have a beautiful family. Don't let this ruin it." And that was it. No name at the bottom. No request for forgiveness. Just silence. Eric didn't say anything for a long time. Neither did I. We just sat there in our quiet house, surrounded by laundry and soft baby breaths, and the weight of 12 years of fiction collapsing in on itself. Later that night, after we got the kids to bed, I found him in the kitchen, just sitting on the floor, back against the cabinets, phone in his lap. He looked up at me, eyes hollow. "I didn't know," he said. I nodded. "I know. I really thought he was out there. I know. He let out a breath that sounded more like a sob. I mourned a kid that never existed. I sat down beside him and pulled him into me. You didn't mourn nothing, I whispered. You mourned what you were told. You mourned the future someone convinced you was real. That's not nothing. He didn't answer. Just laid his head against my shoulder and let himself fall apart. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak in the hallway made my heart race. I kept checking the baby monitor, then double-checking the locks. I pulled our curtains closed tighter, logged out of my social accounts, deleted old DMs, switched my Instagram to private. I even looked up how to do a background sweep of our names. I don't know what I was scared of. Maybe that she'd change her mind, show up, find us. Or maybe I was scared of what it meant to be watched for that long. To know someone followed our lives, our wedding, our pregnancy, our kids, and used it to feed a lie. I wanted to feel relief. Instead, I felt violated. Eric went back to therapy the following Monday. I stayed home with the kids and sat on the edge of the bed while they napped, rereading her message again and again. So many little things made sense now. The fake FaceTimes, the sudden blocks, the panicked outbursts, the photos that never had timestamps, the child who never learned to speak English, the inconsistencies in her stories, the odd timing of every reappearance. I realized I'd spent years giving grace to someone who never deserved it, and not enough to myself for being suspicious all along. Eric called me from the parking lot after his session. She said it's okay to grieve something that wasn't real, he told me. I didn't respond, because I wasn't sure if I was grieving the fake child, or the part of me that believed our story was ever under our control. Katie never reached out again, but her silence now felt different, permanent, like something had finally been buried for good, or maybe, finally uncovered. We didn't speak much the day after the message. It was like we were moving through smoke. Everything felt muffled, like someone had wrapped our entire house in cotton. The kids still cried, the twins still needed bottles, the dishwasher still beeped, but nothing felt real. Eric was quiet, not in a sulking way, not in a guilty way, just hollow, like something inside him had been scooped out. He moved like he wasn't fully here. I, on the other hand, was angry. Not at him exactly, but at the whole situation, at the years we spent walking on eggshells, at the times I'd swallowed my own discomfort to avoid making him feel worse, at how much of our life had been shaped by a woman who never even gave us the truth to work with. By the second night, I snapped. Are we just gonna live like this? I asked. Standing at the foot of our bed while he stared blankly at the ceiling, he didn't look at me. Like what? Like we didn't just waste 12 years on a lie. He flinched, and for a moment, I regretted it. But only for a moment. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face like he was trying to wake up from something. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me why we let her control our entire relationship, I said. I want you to tell me how we let her haunt our marriage with a fake child and a bunch of photos and some half-written messages. I want to know why we let her in. Eric didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, because part of me needed her to be telling the truth. That stopped me. He looked up at me, eyes red but dry. I was 23. I thought I messed up something huge. I thought I had a kid out there, and even when it didn't make sense, I couldn't let go of that guilt. I thought, if I just stayed available, maybe I could redeem it somehow. And what about now? I asked. I don't know, he said. Now it just feels like I've been living in someone else's story. We stared at each other in silence. Then I walked over, grabbed his phone and opened the message again. Delete it, I said. He hesitated, then tapped and held it. Gone. I opened the folder he'd kept on his phone. Old photos, screenshots, voice notes she'd sent years ago. I looked at him again. He nodded. So I deleted those too. The next morning we went through everything. Emails, Google Drive, his old laptop. Even a few paper letters she'd sent early on. He still had them tucked inside a notebook, like some kind of toxic keepsake. We deleted it all. Every trace of her. Every trace of the boy. It felt like burning down a house that was never really ours to begin with. At one point, I found an old draft of an email Eric had never sent. It said, I don't know if you're telling the truth anymore, but I know I need something to believe in. Please stop disappearing. Please stop pulling me back. I didn't say anything, just closed the laptop and added it to the pile. By afternoon, I switched all our social media accounts to private, scrubbed any old tags she might have followed. We logged out of everything and agreed. No more opening messages from blocked contacts. No more chasing her ghost. That night, when the kids were asleep, I poured 2 glasses of wine and brought them to the porch. Eric joined me a minute later, shoulders tense but jaw unclenched for the first time in days. We sat in silence for a while. I still feel like I should tell someone, he said, eventually. Like maybe your parents, or a friend. I shook my head. For what? So they can pity us? Judge us? Try to make sense of something that never made sense to begin with? He looked down. It just feels like lying if we say nothing. No, I said. It's not lying. It's surviving. It's finally shutting the door. He nodded slowly. Okay, and that was that. We never talked about telling anyone again. A few weeks later, I caught Eric in the backyard with our toddler on his shoulders, and one twin in each arm. He was laughing, full, loud, unguarded, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard in a long time. I stood at the window for a while, just watching them. The grass was overgrown, the kids were squealing, the sun was too bright, but it felt like ours. Finally, not shared with some stranger halfway across the world, not borrowed from a lie, not paused because someone else decided to push play, just ours. Sometimes I still wonder if Katie watches us, if she checks old bookmarks, if she visits our private profiles, if she saved our baby announcements or screenshot our wedding photos, if she's out there, remembering the story she built out of nothing. I used to be afraid of that, but now I don't care. She can keep whatever pieces she took, because we have the whole thing, we always did. A marriage, a family, a home. She may have made up a child, but she never got to take our life, and she never will.